What's good, everybody? We are back. The War Report. Yes, we are still here. Y'all can't get rid of us just because our team is not playing up to the standard that we want to. We still gonna bring y'all the content. We still gonna bring y'all the fire. We here. It's your man Gi. Listen, before we get into all of this stuff, make sure that you are checking us out on YouTube. Of course, clicking like and subscribe on the videos. It helps us out a lot if we can get more followers and we can continue to bring you guys this content. We can even increase the kind of content that we're bringing if we have more people. Anyway, you get how this stuff works. I don't need to belabor the point. The War Report on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok. We have TW Report. Fellas, yeah. I don't really know what to say about the performance that we've seen thus far that we have not already said. But it is what it is. We're here. We're back for another week. South Carolina is next on the menu, and we can see if we can get out of there with another W. We'll talk more about the game specifically, but that's what's coming up. How y'all feeling?
Outside of thinking about Auburn football, I'm great.
I would love it if we could be the one game that Will Muschamp sneaks.
So you want us to lose this game?
Oh, absolutely. Listen, man. Listen. Okay. Alabama would have done it last year. Anybody who's been watching
Gamecock this Saturday.
Listen, I'm never gonna be a Gamecock. I'm just not gonna be rooting for us to barely tweak out a game. If we win, I want us to win convincingly. I want to see improvement in all the ways we've been deficient to let me know that we are on the upward trend. If we do this same thing we did last week, same thing we did last year against Ole Miss, then no, I don't want any of that. I want us to get, if we're going to lose, if we're going to either barely win, barely lose, or lose embarrassingly, I want to lose embarrassingly, but I want to do it to a terrible team and not a Georgia team, so they can kind of write it off as, oh, they got better talent, they always good. No, we don't have any excuse to lose as badly as we did to Georgia. We don't have any excuse to look as bad as we did against Arkansas. And I'm hoping that we have another no excuse to look this bad game this weekend so we can get Gus a seat even harder. Let's get him out of here, man. Let's get him out of here.
Tank for firing Gus. It's like the opposite of like pro teams where they're like tank for this high draft pick. Like you want our team to tank to get rid of our coach.
We do. It's time. It's time.
I'm sorry. As much as I hate Gus, I am not ever gonna root for us to lose games, especially to no trash South Carolina. I'm sorry.
You know what? That's why this show gonna be good for the next 2-3 years, because we're gonna keep getting strung along and have these ups and downs. Wouldn't you like to just know that we're gonna win a game? When the last time we just knew we're gonna win a game?
Is that what's gonna make the show good? Us struggling every week?
Whenever Coastal Carolina comes to town, I feel good about those games. The tune-up games, homecoming. As long as we ain't playing JSU, I'm
got
good.
None of those this year. So do we have a week where you look at that schedule and we might have felt comfortable?
Not anymore.
Nope, not no
more. Nope. Last week was one of them weeks, and we almost fumbled the game away, literally.
Felipe Franks almost beat us, man.
That's so disheartening. Felipe Franks was supposed to be trash and come give me my turnovers. He didn't turn the ball over not once in the rain.
I'm surprised the SEC backed up those refs, because all four of us agreed that was a fumble.
That was a fumble.
You know what I mean? All four of us agreed. So I'm surprised the SEC actually backed them up like that, but whatever.
I mean, it is what it is. Like, it's nothing like if they came out and they were like, the refs got it wrong, it's not like they're going to reverse the call and give Arkansas the win. So they might as well back their refs up and then just score them privately. But anyway, let's get into the meat of the matter. Let's talk about the games that are coming up this weekend. Well, actually, let's recap the games from this past weekend. Mike's not here, so let's talk first about the fact. Let's first talk about the fact that Texas A&M won. So we can rob him of that little pleasure that he's going to have for bragging about that. He's going to have to you know what? Mike has missed all of the shows since he made that prediction correct that would allow him to brag about getting it right.
Ain't got good.
See? he got too lucky, and now all of a sudden his schedule got too busy for him to brag about it. He didn't know for real. He did get it exactly right though.
He predicted it.
A field goal at the end to win it. And to be fair, he almost got it right with Bama about 3/4 of the way through that game. Because Ole Miss was looking like they was going to get a little upset going over there too, because Bama's defense was not looking too great against this Lane Kiffin passing attack, man.
And we'll get into what that would meant for Nick Saban. They had to have been cheating to score points
Oh,
on us.
of
They had to,
course.
of course,
I
they
mean,
had to have been cheating.
well, let's talk about it because of course, that is always the thing. I mean, so this to me is the biggest thing that I dislike about Nick Saban is his
Mhm,
inability to accept defeat.
mhm,
Every time he is losing or has lost, it was somebody else's fault or
mhm.
some like the ref made a play and you can and he goes and complains to the league about, we need to change this rule or this time they were stealing signals. It's like, bruh, you can steal every signal in the world. If your guys actually just tackled,
Right.
Ole Miss probably doesn't score the majority of the points they do.
Yeah.
They can't. Did they steal the direction that your guy was going to lunge for a tackle too? Like, did they give that away?
Well,
Well,
some great winners make sore losers, man. And we've seen this with Saban over and over. He has a hard time accepting that he got beat. And
yeah.
Lane, I mean, and let's face it, when it comes to Lane Kiffin, Saban will always have a target on his head,
Yeah,
and so he's
Mhm,
gunning for him. So
yeah.
that's why I anticipated it being an entertaining game, which it was.
Yeah.
yeah. The part that was not entertaining for me is the fact that we got to play them. And if Bama was looking that bad, I am not expecting us to look much better because our defense, specifically our pass rush, has looked atrocious so far. So if
We
they're
don't
gonna be
even have an
slinging it like
offense to
that,
match them with.
yeah. Ben, see, that's the problem is that if they're gonna be slinging it like that and putting up them kind of points, like unless, I mean, Bama's offense is amazing. So and Ole Miss's defense wasn't playing trash; they were just outmatched. But look, to be
Well,
fair though, Bama was being they were beating themselves a lot on offense too. They had a lot of pre-snap penalty. They were they're being very uncharacteristically undisciplined this year.
Ole Miss can't stop anybody, and especially
Throughout the
on the
whole season.
ground. So our hope is that we have a healthy
Mhm.
tank
Hmm.
that
Mhm.
we can rely on to open things up offensively for us to make the game interesting. So
Right.
yeah, that's Ole Miss's problem is that I think I even heard their quarterback talk about that. It doesn't matter what kind of offense, I mean, what kind of defense they got. That's how confident they are. Like let's just get into a shootout with teams. That's just
Right.
kind of their identity this year. So
Right.
our
The
thing is
SEC is
that
turning into the Pac-12, or the Big 12. Like we have just morphed into a shootout type of style thing. Like defense is optional again apparently now in the SEC.
Well, yes and no. I mean, we brought some West Coast guys out here to coach, and ironically, Mississippi State has not scored any more points since they beat LSU. Really,
They
um,
capped out on the whole season. That was like their season's total in the first game or
they
whatever
used
it was.
all them points early, got it out the way. But I think the flip side of what we're seeing is I've heard a lot, like when the NFL missed their preseason and they shortened their camps, was that I always thought that offenses would have to catch up because they need rhythm. So maybe in college, what we're seeing is that those new defenders, those new starters, that they have to get in game shape, that they have to learn the system, that they have to get in tackling habit, and that camp is just as important for them, at least on the college level, is that camp is important for those defenders because people are looking bad that I haven't seen look that bad. Like, I don't know, man. Alabama, listen, they're always going to be competitive. They're always going to have talent, but missing tackles like that doesn't even look right. I don't want to beat a bad Alabama defense. You want to beat a competitive Alabama defense for the bragging rights to feel, significant. So I don't think it is indicative of a full swing. We are going more offensive in the conference, but I think it is partially defenses need time. We have a lot of injuries. I don't know how many other teams are suffering from a lot of injuries. LSU was going to be garbage. They lost too much. They lost too much. New D coordinator, new defensive system. That was going to happen there. So I'm not surprised there. For us, I'm surprised. For Alabama, I'm surprised. Georgia didn't suffer too much of a setback, so that's a credit to Kirby and whatever they're doing over there. But I think the defenses will start to catch up here soon. At least I hope so.
We'll see. We will definitely
We'll
see what
see.
happens. Hopefully that includes us.
Yeah, for
And
real.
rules, and we got to take into account rules have changed to benefit offenses. Like
Yeah.
sometimes on defense, you're playing timid because you don't want to get hit with a targeting and
Mhm.
whatnot. So we got to take into account the way guys have to tackle and play defense is a lot different from when defenses rule the day. Like you didn't have to worry about leading with the crown of your head 5, 6, 7 years ago. So it's just it's a new game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we'll see how it goes. All right. So let's get into this coming week and what we've got on the schedule. Let's start down here with a team that we just barely skated by this past Saturday, playing the team aforementioned that just beat or got beat by Bama. Ole Miss versus Arkansas. So we've only played one of these two teams. We know what one of them looks like specifically. We only can surmise what the other one looks like based upon what we've seen from their previous games. What are you guys feeling about with this one right here? Well, I'll start with you, Caesar. How are you feeling about this game?
If you Ole Miss, you got to be feeling good about what you saw last week, even in a loss against Bama. Arkansas at home. I mean, we've seen them surprisingly go toe to toe with Georgia. We've seen them fight tooth and nail with us to the end and almost pull it out. We saw what they've done with Mississippi State. Arkansas is still a bit unpredictable.
Hmm.
Um, so it's kind of is I'm not too eager to write them off as a team because they appear to be a very confident team under Pittman in year one. And so if I'm Ole Miss, you're coming off an emotional loss with Bama. The key is, can they get up for this game and prove that Alabama just wasn't a splash in the pan game for them. I
Right.
like Ole Miss. I like Ole Miss by 2 scores in this game when it's all said and done, but I can see Arkansas putting up a fight with them through 2 or 3 quarters.
B, what you feeling?
Yeah, so I think Ole Miss can come out looking really good here if they get up big. I think Arkansas's benefit is that they can fight and scrap with you for a little while. And as long as you're not too far ahead, then they can stay in the game and keep it competitive. But if they have to throw the ball, which is a major difference between moving the ball on the ground a little bit, playing some decent defense, and staying and throwing in Frank surprising you with a long ball here and there. If you get down 2 or 3 scores and it's the third quarter, then I like Ole Miss to just pull away because I don't think. And I'm saying this, like you said, they're unpredictable. I still, even though he didn't look terrible against us, I do not trust Felipe Franks. Unfortunately, we didn't have a good enough offense to put real pressure on him
Mm-hmm.
to have
Right.
to throw the ball and they have to start moving it down the field in big chunks. I think Ole Miss does have that kind of offense to get up like that. So I want to see what Arkansas looks like when they're down 2 scores in the second half and they go, all right, now we have to throw the ball and we have to put up points because they're not going to stop. So let's do this right now. That's when I expect Felipe Franks to start making some Felipe Franks plays. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Felipe Franks, but you are still Felipe Franks.
Yeah, my thing here is I don't think either of these defenses can stop the other offense in this game.
That's true.
I am not convinced. Like though we looked very mediocre against Arkansas, we ran the ball well in that game.
Hmm. Yeah.
Very well.
Ole Miss, even though they throw the ball all over the field, has a decent run game this year. And
Hmm.
so if you're going to allow Ole Miss to be balanced where they don't have to just throw the ball all the time, that's like telling Lane Kiffin that you want him to score 100.
Yeah.
So I just don't know how Arkansas turns Ole Miss into a one-dimensional team. And that's what you're going to have to do is just make them be one-dimensional. I don't know how you're going to do that because if you limit Lane Kiffin's creativity in the playbook, then you hopefully can start to do something with that offense that makes it more predictable. I don't know how you do that. Well, as Arkansas, if they can't stop somebody from running the ball, so I'm going to pick Ole Miss in this one, and I'm going to lean towards Caesar and say it's going to be a two-score situation.
Yeah. Very
All
good.
right, let's go over to talk a little bit about Kentucky at number 18, Tennessee. Tennessee coming off of a loss where they looked good early in the game against Georgia. Kentucky been an anomaly this year where they've looked decent, but they just haven't really put it together for a full 4 quarters with anybody. What are you feeling about this one? I'll start with you, B. Will.
I think Kentucky is kind of turning back into who they had been the years before last year. They had an outstanding back last year. They had a really good dynamic quarterback last year. Even though it's that's not the same quarterback that came back this year, is it?
No,
He
so
was hurt.
their quarterback last year was actually a running back that they had
Right.
playing like
I
Wildcat.
think
So
the guy
this is
this year was he hurt?
he was hurt last year, but he was the
Gotcha.
starting quarterback at the beginning of the season, and then he
Mhm.
got hurt, and then they went into this Wildcat like all run game situation. So yeah,
Yeah.
now they actually have a guy who's supposed to be able to throw the ball, and he just hasn't really produced offensively.
Yeah. So I think Kentucky lost a lot. I know their offensive line is still supposed to be good. I still don't know how much that's the case. We were excited that we looked good against their offensive line after one half, but now I'm starting to question how legitimate, their line being a strength is because our defensive line has looked mediocre since we played that game. So I expect Kentucky to kind of turn again. They are kind of turning back into old Kentucky. That don't
Hmm.
mean they're bad. They'll compete. They do seem to be competing under Stoops, but Tennessee looks like the better team at this point in the season. I know that's somewhat of a rivalry though, so I'm gonna give Kentucky a chance to fight. But more often than not in the past, when they aren't great, Kentucky finds a way to lose games. It's kind of their MO. So I don't expect them to win this one. I expect Tennessee by 10 to 14 points.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo that right around the same score gap for me there. 10-14 is right where I think it will be in that game. And I actually wouldn't be surprised if Tennessee really put it on them because I believe Tennessee is legitimate. I know if Mike were here, he would disagree with me about Tennessee. I do think Tennessee is a legitimate top 25 team this year. I think that they have the talent, and they aren't giving games away right now. Like
Mm.
they lost to Georgia, but Georgia's a good team, and they
Yeah, that's no
played
shame in
well
losing to
against
Georgia on the
es-
road.
especially considering they were in that game for really the first half of it into going into the third quarter, and it
Yeah.
just slipped away from them.
Mm.
So yeah, same place where I am with that. Caesar, you got anything to add to that?
No, not really. Yeah, I think Kentucky. The thing with not Kentucky, but Tennessee is that this is a team that's learning how to win. And I think the thing with a team like Tennessee is that they're going to win these types of games against Kentucky, right? Kentucky's got the better of them because Tennessee has been largely down for the past couple of years. So you can kind of see, Kentucky's going to play with a lot of confidence. But I think the thing with Tennessee is as it's building its program, learning how to win the Alabamas, the Georgias, the Floridas, learning how to win those big games. And it's almost uh, kind of like what we saw last week with Texas A&M, who we'll discuss shortly, needing that signature game to win to kind of almost get over the hump for them moving forward and build confidence as a program. But I don't see them struggling this week against I see it being competitive, but I think when it's all said and done, Tennessee got it.
Cool, cool. Everybody's in agreement so far. This one is going to be an interesting matchup. The aforementioned Texas A&M traveling to Mississippi State. Mississippi State's offense has looked anemic since hanging a big number up on LSU the first week of the season. Have they scored 10 points the rest of the season combined?
What has been the scores? I don't know
I know they
what
only
the
scored
final
2
scores
points
were.
last week.
Right. Oh, that's wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they have. They have.
What did
They
they score?
scored 14 against Arkansas,
That's what it was. Okay.
and then
So
they got a safety last
yeah.
week.
So they have since the first game of the season, they have scored a sum total in the next 2 weeks, 16 points. And they are facing at home Texas A&M. How are you all feeling about that?
This has every making of a trap game for
Mm-hmm.
Texas A&M. Coming off an emotional win against Florida at home, Mississippi State is pissed. And they want to prove that they can do more than this. Just score 2 points offered by the defense. This has every makings of a if Texas A&M isn't focused, they can find themselves in a very scary predicament against this team with something to prove and playing like they got nothing to lose. Um, I think Kellen Mond will not reproduce the performance he did. I think he will be a little off and erratic at times. But I think that at the same time, something else happened last week that I think will continue to help Kellen Mond, and that was a run game. I was impressed with A&M and their ability to run the ball. Granted, it was Florida, and Florida's defense is the epitome of suspect. So I just think that they'll be able to build off of that performance on the ground last week and build on it here to not have to, again, rely on Kellen Mond to move the football and move the chains. And I think because of that, A&M can get the W in what I think that what will be a challenging game against a very, to me, a Mississippi State try to prove something this upcoming Saturday. I got them winning by 10.
We will.
I'm with Caesar in that I don't expect that to be a trend from Kellen Mond. Much like Felipe Franks, I'm not gonna let one showing sway me off of who you are, Kellen Mond. You are mid, the middest of mid, the most mid quarterback in the SEC West. In that, versus the hype he garners, he is not nearly as good as what he's billed to be. But just like Bo Nix, he's had a very good game. It was a very good game. The passes I saw him throwing, it was some tight windows a couple times, hitting receivers on the run in a way that let them keep running, which is something that Bo Nix cannot do. So that was promising from Kellen Mond. But I also think, like Bo Nix, he is a streak shooter in that he's got to be in the mood. He's got to be in rhythm. The sun's got to be in this angle in the sky, and the wind's got to be blowing at this many degrees north and this cooler temperature for him to have a great game. And he had it against a very, very suspect defense. But at this point in the season, I still don't know who Mississippi State is either. But I know Texas A&M has not looked as bad as Mississippi State has looked. So I will give every bit of deference to Texas A&M to win this game. I couldn't tell you about how much because, man, they could be high and low. Mississippi State could reach up. Like Jay said, this could be a trap game for them. Mississippi State could be like, man, we're terrible. We got to save our season, and then play out of their mind for a game. So I couldn't say about how much, but I don't expect a team that has looked as bad as Mississippi State to play well enough to be a team with more superior talent to this extent in Texas A&M.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be Mike on this one, and I'm actually going to pick the upset here. This, to me, I echoed the sentiments of this stinks of a trap game for Texas A&M. Texas A&M, for the same reasons you just said, Caesar. They need a good run game in order to be. And Mississippi State's actually looked decent against the run this year. All things considered, I think if their offense gets it on track, they're going to actually end up winning this game. So I'm actually going to pick Mississippi State in the upset this week against Texas A&M.
All right, now you got a score prediction on that?
I think they're going to win the game. I think they'll win it by, we'll say a touchdown. So at least 6 points.
Okay. All right.
Yep. All right. So here's where it gets interesting for us this coming up Saturday. We have two games that are ending up getting postponed because of some sort of anomaly going on. Most notably, we've got Florida supposed to be playing LSU. Now, this is coming on the heels of what's that fool's name down there, Florida? Dan Mullen saying that he wants them to pack the swamp out for a game. And then the very next week, they end up getting all kinds of positive COVID tests down there on campus, and now they have to postpone the game. So
I think it's been rescheduled for December 12th.
December 12th, which is what we talked about the very first show I was back. What does it look like when you move delayed games into a bye week or in the last week of the regular season or whenever it is and push the SEC championship game? How many times are we going to have to do this? If Florida has positive tests, that's the team and not the student body. And I don't know which it is because they don't have to divulge exactly who got it, how they got it, what it traced to, which is a little suspect in itself, but we know they want business to keep going. So that's not a surprise. But if the last team you played has tested are they testing positive as well? Like as of right now, Ole Miss made Lane Kiffin made a comment today that they were having some issues with COVID, and now Nick Saban has tested positive for COVID. So was that an Ole Miss Nick Saban thing? So is the Bama game gonna get pushed? Is Ole Miss's game gonna get pushed as well? There's a lot of things up in the air, and I don't know exactly how this is gonna look if you have to push more than 2 weeks worth and if any one team has 2 games delayed, that's it. Like now you're pushing stuff back. Now you risk getting into the national championship game, the semifinal. How is that gonna? Is the committee gonna say, "All right, we'll wait on you, SEC, because we need you in here," which they kind of do. But if Ohio State and Clemson go undefeated, they kind of don't. I mean, I feel like it's gonna depend on who can actually finish, and I don't know if this is a trend. If we're just eking towards kill it, don't worry about it, it's too risky, or if this is gonna be the indefinite season that runs into the beginning of January. I have no
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is that it puts a huge cloud over the season. People talked about how this NBA championship was a rec league championship because of the bubble and asterisks all over the place. Like if we get to a national championship this year in college football, I feel like we're going to be in that same position. Along with Florida LSU being postponed, the Missouri who's Missouri playing Vanderbilt game is going to get postponed this week. As you mentioned, Nick Saban now has COVID, so he's likely not going to be on the sidelines for the Georgia versus Bama game. So it's just a lot of stuff that So now, if Bama loses that game, are people going to be saying, "Well, it's because Nick wasn't on the sidelines," right? Like, so
Right.
it's so much craziness going on with this season that now you've got all of these potential clouds hanging over whoever ends up winning, just because of the oddity of the year.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I just personally think that Derek Mason, Ed Orgeron, and Gus Malzahn have been praying for COVID cases to start postponing games so they can get out of the season. And I think God is answering their prayers. This is what I personally think.
There's a ton of people who probably think that this is all Gus Malzahn's fault because he is
I can go with
easily
that.
he's easily the luckiest coach in college football history.
Yeah.
The way that we miraculously won that LSU game, where it was basically between him and
Les Miles.
Les
One of us gonna
Miles,
go.
right? Whoever lost that game, they were going to lose their job, and we barely won that game in the last
Six
minute.
field goal.
Call it the Pink Slip Bowl.
He wins that game. He keeps his job. He's still here right now, right? Les Miles, God bless him, he is nowhere to be seen. He's been
He is
commentating
getting
somewhere.
thrashed at Kansas.
Yeah.
So
But LSU got a natty out of it.
yeah.
That's all they got too, boy. No boy.
Then you fast forward and
Grand
he
opening,
gets
grand closing, right?
prayer at Jordan Hare happens for him. The kick six happens for him. Like he gets all of these super miraculous things to happen that keep him securing his job year over year. We somehow figure out a way to beat Georgia and Bama again, then losing the SEC championship. But still, in a season where we had already lost a couple of games, right? Like, and then we finish off the season in miraculous fashion, going undefeated up into and marching into the SEC championship. He finds last week, a miraculous fumble. Like he just is the luckiest coach ever. He has some kind of voodoo that he is putting out there, and I think this COVID thing is probably just another example of Gus is going to figure out a way. You talk about a used car salesman. Who's a bigger used car salesman here, B. Will? Who's the bigger one? Is it
It's
Gus
still this
Mouse?
Jimbo all day because he run that mouth, boy. But you know what I'll tell you. You know what I will tell you. No, shut up, man. Just want to win more games. You know what I tell you. Shut up.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, Mike. If Bama loses, that's going to be the excuse. Nick Saban wasn't on the sidelines, and then Bama fans are going to swear this season doesn't count if they don't get to go to the national championship because COVID ruined their season. That's going to actually be an interesting twist for a bunch of Bama fans who hated Nick Saban at the beginning of this season because he was doing the whole Black Lives Matter thing, and now he's enthralled in this COVID situation, which I don't want to generalize, but we can pretty much assume because we live in the state of Alabama, we know how the majority of the Alabama fan base feels about the nature of COVID-19 and how the government has handled this, it was probably a hoax to a lot of them to begin it, and they were just like, "Why aren't we playing football?" And now we're playing football, and now COVID may cost them a national championship if they lose this game, right? And
Yeah.
so, how are they going to feel about that? And it's Nick Saban who ended up getting it. They're the guy who they love and hate now. I don't even understand what happens, with Bama fans, but whatever. But speaking of all of that, what are we feeling about that game? Despite all of that, Nick Saban coaching or not, how are we feeling like this Georgia Bama game is going to shake out?
Hmm.
I'll let B Will go.
Man, I have no idea. I mean, if you go by how Alabama's defense looked last week, then you'd say Bennett. Is it Bennett? Was that UGA's quarterback? Then you
Yeah.
say Bennett and those speedy wide receivers are gonna have a field day. They're gonna be balanced with the run. They should have everything they need to put up mid-30s on Bama, which would be all Georgia needs because their defense, much like I expect from most really, really good offenses, is that when they're putting up stupid numbers against mediocre and bad defenses, once they meet a very good defense, they're going to get controlled to some extent. I'm not saying that Bama's going to walk out of there with less than 17 points or just 2 touchdowns and that's it. But I don't expect them to put up 50 either. I don't expect them to get to 40. I would expect Bama to end up in the 20s. I expect UGA, honestly, to win this game and be a little better. 3 points, 7 points, maybe no more than that, because Bama's got too much talent to just stomp them out. But I expect Georgia to win this game.
Yeah, I'm actually picking Georgia to win the game as well. And that's not a Bama hate pick. That is me seeing Bama's defense be super ineffective so far this season and me seeing Georgia's defense being effective. Those two things together, whether Georgia puts up a ton of points or not, I think their defense keeps them in this game and they make just enough plays to get out of there with a victory.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Well, y'all took my pick.
So we're all going to pick Bama to lose this weekend, regardless of Saban on the sidelines.
And it's not even. And again, it's strength on strength, right? It's Bama's offense against Georgia's defense, and I've been largely impressed with Georgia's defense up to this point. Now, one can argue that they haven't faced any potent offenses, so this is a test for them going on the road against Alabama. I just know that when it comes to Bama, what I'm looking at is how they play Texas A&M, right? And we saw what you call a mid quarterback, but I'm telling you, Auburn can sure use a mid quarterback right now. We saw a mid quarterback basically make some plays and kept it interesting for a half. Now, A&M's defense is not as disciplined as Georgia's. So I'm expecting some of the mental errors and mistakes that was made by Kellen Mond, made by that defense. I expect to see less of that in a game against Bama. And I expect when you have that, you're going to have a much more tighter game. And it's interesting to see how that offense performs under pressure in a game to where they can't afford to make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah. So is this what's interesting about this as well is Nick Saban is undefeated against his former assistant coaches. He's not actually
as they keep reminding us,
game, right? He's not actually the one coaching this game. So will he continue if Georgia wins to keep his undefeated streak going because he's not the one that technically coached the game.
The media will keep it going.
So, yeah, they will. Yeah,
they will keep it going. And this is going to be my pick before the whole Nick Saban getting COVID came out.
I wonder if Nick Saban is like, man, I want to keep my streak going, and I know we're going to lose this game, so I'm just not going to coach, and I got COVID. No, I'm just playing. I don't think Nick is that devious that he would do something like that.
I don't either. Yeah. But I do find it interesting, though, like a couple of my friends that family and friends I text with because they Bama fans and Auburn fans, we text each other back and forth all throughout the year, like, hey, this is how y'all looking. Y'all look bad. Okay, y'all look better than I thought. And I have been telling them for the past 5 years, even though it's only reared its head for the last 2 or 3, that the talent edge that Bama had was starting to diminish. Losing Kirby was a big deal because he can pull elite recruits to Georgia in droves that Georgia wasn't getting. Like Mark Richt, honestly, he got a ridiculous amount of talent. All right, he really
Right.
he deserved to go because he was kind of what Gus Malzahn is. Like you getting the horse, buddy, but you ain't doing nothing with him. But Kirby has been getting it at a higher clip, honestly, and you kind of split the Bama mystique between Alabama and Georgia when he did that. Clemson being on the high that they're on, they started to pull. I mean, listen, man, 7 years ago, it wasn't between Clemson and Bama for that 5-star middle linebacker. It was between Bama and Bama. And maybe LSU could sneak one or two. And every now and then Georgia could too, but Georgia kind of had to stay in their region. But now that talent is going to Georgia. That talent is going to Clemson. Now that once Urban got back to Ohio State years ago, they started cheating better. They started getting good recruits at Ohio State. So that talent circle it's not just Alabama and then everybody gets the leftovers like it was back when they were truly dominating. It is you're going to get the talent. Is about 4 other people in the nation who are getting the talent as well, and you have to now just outplay them. And one thing that we've seen, and I will argue with Mike about this all day, unless Nick Saban has a distinct, undistinguishable talent advantage, he is a good coach. What has made him a very successful coach is that his talent advantage has been phenomenal. Now that it's evening, he gets ran out of the stadium in the national championship game against Clemson. Then they don't even make the SEC championship game. They get beaten by LSU. They get beaten by us, by Bo Nix. Alabama lost to Bo Nix. You know how embarrassing that is? Arkansas made Bo Nix look worse than Alabama made him look. Now, some of that is Gus always being ready for the Alabama game, which he is. He always does more than he should do against them. But for that reason, I don't.
He actually does his job.
Yeah, because that's the job on the line. I don't expect Alabama. It wouldn't be a shock, and all of us are picking Georgia, but it's not this. Oh, we hate Alabama. It is a natural occurrence. That trail off is not Alabama falling off to nothing. It's them coming back to the pack because everybody else has gotten better, and it was going to happen. It had kind of, the loss to LSU wasn't anything to be ashamed about, even for a dominant Alabama team, because LSU was really that stacked. They had the right coaches. They had the right trigger man in Burrow, and that was just their year. That was very similar to a couple other times. You can be like, you know what, this team just got it. 2010, Cam, that was our year. I'm sorry. Nobody was going to beat us that year. That was our year. Last year, that was LSU's year. It was just their year. Nothing wrong with losing to them. But what year have we been able to say that about anybody around Alabama? It has never been the case where you have to flip a coin. Like, I don't know, Clemson, Alabama. I don't know. They might lose. Now we're saying Georgia. Georgia looks better at this point. They might lose that game, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. But it is refreshing for me to think of Alabama as they're a good team, but they're a beatable team. The whole thing has balance. Georgia could be the big dog, and Alabama could be the big dog in 2 different conferences, and we could all be having more competitive games. Auburn, we should be able to be in the thick of that, and I think that's the most disappointing thing for me is that we're just below on talent. If those guys are top tier, we are right here on talent, but defensively, we've coached people up, and something that Mike has brought up a lot. We're not coaching our offensive talent up to the point where we should be able to be competitive with all those guys. Even if we aren't getting elite guys, we should be able to be competitive with everybody that we see on the field, and we're not. Yeah. So that's a long roundabout way of saying Alabama's going down, baby. It's coming, baby. It's time. It's time, baby. I've been waiting on this.
Listen, I again, for what I've seen so far this year, Bama's defense just has not impressed me at all. At any point, like they have been giving up way too many points all season, and Georgia to me is just way too balanced. Like,
can we keep it honest? Let's keep it a bean here. That defense hasn't been the same since Kirby left.
For sure, it's been on a steady decline since Kirby.
Wait? No, Jeremy Pruitt, 2016. Their defense was good.
Well, Pruitt.
Because that was Pruitt basically was taking over that last remnant of what Kirby left them. Then Pruitt left, and he's in Tennessee now, and we see the Tennessee program starting to do their thing up there. So now they're trying to find a defensive head coach or defensive coach that can adopt the mentality that they've had, and it's just we've seen a steady decline.
And
Like,
I'll be honest, even talking to some Bama friends, like Pruitt was good, but even Bama fans was like, kind of miss Kirby.
Yeah.
Running that defense. And after Pruitt left, they have not been happy with any of those DCs for real since Pruitt left. So the defense that they're still trying to find themselves defensively.
They are. But some of the, you know what, the interesting thing is that they don't account for the fact that it's not just a plug and play system. Like Jeremy Pruitt is a good football mind. He won a national championship at Florida State. Because
Right.
he knew he was a good defensive coordinator. Kirby was a good defensive coordinator, as evidenced by how those Georgia defenses have looked ever since he got over there. The next guy in line, they have suffered a talent departure, but they've also suffered a coaching departure. And unlike Clemson, who said, Brent Venables, I don't care what you want to do. We will double whatever you get offered anywhere else to keep you here so you don't get out of the building. Nick Saban says, I don't know. That's what every time somebody wants to leave, he said, we got the talent. We got, people want to come here. We'll be all right. And they do get coaches. Charlie Strong is in that building over there.
Right.
He's next in line. He's next in line.
He's next in line, but they've got to give him the reins because, hey, something's not working with the current DC. And I do think that's part of it, but I also think it is talent. It's a combination of both. And also everybody playing better offense. Some of that is the case as well.
Yeah, it's a combination of the offenses getting better, not having a lot of consistency at defensive coordinator, and you have a revolving door of talent. They're still sending a lot of kids to the NFL from that side of the ball. Yeah, so they're talented. They're just young.
Talented guys.
They're just young and
and that goes back to the lack of discipline that you're seeing, like the missed tackles, the pre-snap penalties. You're seeing a lot of that this year because they're young and they're having to grow into that. They're going to have to grow up really fast this week because Georgia's not going to give them an opportunity to figure it out.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go to the game that we're here to talk about. Not sure how much we want to talk about it, but that is the one that is going to be in Columbia, South Carolina, against the number now 15 Auburn Tigers facing South Carolina. How do we feel about this one, guys? That good, right? That I'm sorry, I don't feel good about this game because I feel like Muschamp is he's due for like one of them games where he beats a team that's ranked and we look like the kind of team that he's supposed to beat. We have not looked good at all this season. I kind of have like this, I'm a big NFL. I stay abreast of like the talent that exists out here in specific positions where I know like my NFL team could use that position.
Yeah.
And the cornerback that's at South Carolina, was it Moose something like that? I don't know, but that dude is a baller. I like him a lot, and that does not bode well when we have a quarterback that likes to throw errant passes. Because he is not a dude that you make mistakes against. He's a tall, physical receiver on the outside. He is tall, just like Seth Williams is tall. So if he's following him around, them 50-50 balls might not be the ones you want to toss up this game. I don't know, man.
Colin Hill?
Colin Hill's their quarterback. I'm talking about the cornerback over there.
Cornerback, gotcha.
Yeah. His last name starts with an M, and it's like I don't know. I forgot what it is. All I know is he's the guy that had the 2 picks last year against Georgia when they played the game. He had a ridiculous pick last week where he's like falling down one-handed type situation. I was like, man, this dude, he just one of them guys that's around the ball, man. I don't feel good about this at all. I don't know, man. I don't know. South Carolina. And it's at South Carolina. We already have documented many times that Bo Nix is not a great player on the road. The thing that gives me some consolation in my brain is that regardless of what happens, a run game will travel, right? Run game and defense are the things that they say travel anywhere, right? Hopefully that was not some sort of anomaly that our run game got on track this week, Arkansas, and this coming up week against South Carolina, we'll see more of that, and we don't have to rely on Bo Nix throwing the football. I don't see us scoring more than 20 points in this game, though. And the question is, can our defense hold them under 20 points? That is where I'm teetering on right here. Can our defense hold South Carolina's offense under 20 points? If not, we will lose this game.
So bad thing about this matchup is that, well, the good thing is that we're gonna get Jalen Simpson back in the secondary. All other defensive players
Big Cat's coming back too.
Oh, and there you go. And
Hopefully
the only
that means
player we're
something.
gonna miss is Britt. Britt's gonna be out indefinitely
Correct.
with that thumb surgery. So that's probably the rest of the season, honestly. I hope they don't risk his hand or his ligaments for the sake of this season in particular.
Yeah, there's no reason for him to come back this year.
Right. So
even though it's his senior year, but
right, yeah. Just say go to the league, man. But so the scary thing is that South Carolina's not good passing the ball anyway. So what I would expect them to do is to try to just run it down our throats, and I think we might actually be susceptible to that.
Correct.
So that's scary as hell because we are now out of our most vicious tackler in the middle of the field behind the defensive line, who is definitely the linebackers are going to get some work because our defensive line was getting worked against Georgia. We looked marginally better last week, but, that's not Georgia who we were playing against. So I'm a little worried for that reason. They could move the ball against us. They'll likely have their home crowd because all these SEC schools are packing out the stands to some extent anyway, regardless of what's going on with COVID-19. And I can definitely see a situation where Muschamp, who is still a good defensive coordinator, games a very easy to manipulate or very easy to affect Bo Nix into some big mistakes. They play ball control and run it on us, and we can't stop them successfully enough to get the ball back as much as we need it. And from there, we could lose this game. It's completely possible. I could see a 24-21 or 24-20 or something to that extent. They're playing with house money, just like y'all said. I mean, it's not like Muschamp already got that signature win for the season so he can pack it in. No, he hadn't gotten it yet. He's looked bad. He's beaten a really bad. Was it Vanderbilt they played last week?
South Carolina?
Yeah.
No, it was Vandy.
Yeah. So they beat a very bad Vanderbilt team. So that's not the win that he needs to get off the schneid. It would be a ranked Auburn team who has played Alabama competitively, even though that doesn't mean anything for coaches and their jobs and the perception to the fans. And you're still trying to sell this coach as staying the coach. That's important. So, yeah, I'm worried. We didn't look convincingly good against Arkansas at all. We are a mediocre team, and we could absolutely be mediocre this weekend. So I am scared that we will lose this game 24-20.
Yeah, so here's my thing. Like you talked about them needing to be able to run the ball. They haven't run the ball particularly well against anybody except for Vanderbilt. They haven't broken 100 yards on any other team this season. And they ran the ball all up and down the field on Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
So we do have a
That's actually not true.
Who did they run more than 100 against other than Vandy?
Florida.
I thought they only had like 90 rushing yards against Florida.
You may be counting the quarterback getting sacked, but their running back, he rushed. Now, it was on 22 carries, but he got 100 yards.
Okay. All right. So they barely broke 100 against them then. So
Yeah.
but what I'm saying is they haven't looked dominant. And we're talking about against Florida, whose defense has looked trash against them.
Yeah.
So you see what I'm saying? So it's not like they've looked amazing running the ball. That's literally the only thing that gives me hope is that possibly their run offense is not as bad as our run defense, or is worse than our run defense.
Right.
And if we can keep them from going crazy on the run, then we can possibly make them more one-dimensional, which allows us to be better. My only thing is we have to be able to get pressure on this quarterback without blitzing. And that has been the Achilles heel of this defense all year, is we've had to blitz constantly to get any kind of pressure. Now, Jalen Simpson coming back on the outside helps because you have a guy who's better on the boundary. And so hopefully some of those, I don't know what's happened to Christian Tutt, but I need him to wake up.
Yeah, it's been weird.
Because because he was one of those guys I was hoping was going to have a really good year. Um, if he plays better, and our outside guys, McCreary's had a off and on season. He's played decent. I think that we can be okay. But man, we've got Big Cat. If he's truly healthy and he's going to be out there playing, I need to see every bit of what they've been talking about since they recruited him. Because clearly, your boy, what's your man, Captain pre-snap penalty?
TD Moultrie.
TD Moultrie, yeah. If TD Moultrie is going to be the guy on the outside, we don't have a ton of opportunities there to make disciplined plays on the edge. And Big Cat has typically not been a super disciplined guy. He's been physically impressive every season, but I need him to actually go out there and wreck a game plan.
I need him to put it together. I need him to finally put it together in his final year.
Yeah.
Hopefully he's healthy.
We will see.
Out there and go boogie, boogie, boogie.
I don't feel good about this game at all, guys. I really don't, because not only is there concern personnel-wise with some of our players, key players making key plays along the line, getting pressure on the quarterback defensively, not causing penalties, not allowing the guys in the second level. See, the thing that concerns me about our run defense, and it's something that I saw a lot during the Chiswick years. And granted, I'm not comparing our defense to the Chiswick years, but one of the things that I thought was very problematic about our defense is that I saw a lot of guys in the secondary having to make tackles.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been seeing a lot of that early on in the season.
Right, which means that your guys up front are either not occupying blocks well enough or they're not penetrating enough to make it where those offensive linemen have to stay in their blocking assignments and not get to the second level.
Right. Also on offense, good news is I think we have a run game, guys.
Right.
Bad news is I don't think that's helped our quarterback any. And again, as I mentioned, he is indeed a head case. And I just these are key areas that you need to be productive and effective on the road. Not to mention, on top of that, we have been getting outcoached practically all season. And, I thought this coaching staff was going to be prepared against Arkansas. Maybe they come out and be prepared against South Carolina. If they're in a situation where they got to make a lot of adjustments in the second half and go away from their initial plan, it's gonna be a long morning, long afternoon for us.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling good about this game.
I'm not either. I don't even want to give a score prediction. I'm going to reluctantly say we win this game 20-17. But I don't feel good about that prediction at all. Like South Carolina has scored over 30 points. No, let me see. They've scored 38, 27, and 41 in their games so far this season.
Really?
Yes. They scored 27 against Tennessee. They scored 24 again. Oh, I said, what did I say? 31? It's 27, 24, and 41 so far this season offensively. Now, the 41 is against Vanderbilt. And they only scored 24 against a very suspect Florida defense. But still, that's still 24, and I'm only giving them 17 in our game. So
that was on the road too, by the way.
But they've given up 31, 38, and then they only gave up 7 to Vanderbilt. So I don't know, man. I'm just not feeling great about it. I'm gonna pick us 20-17, but that's just because that's like a prayer for me right there. That's not like a very confident pick. I think the spread on this game is 3 points too in our favor. So I'm right with what the line is.
Yeah. I think our only hope in this game is that we're learning something about our offensive line as we get further to the season, which we might. We might just get, and our offensive line usually does that though. Just under Gus, once they get used to the play calling, the tempo, and they settle on who should be where, then they just start going. They, even if they're not great that year, they're going to play the best that they can be by mid-season. And as far as where we are in competition, we should be getting into that rhythm now between this week and next week, which I think is a bye. Is we have a bye next week?
I think next week is the bye. Let me take a look at our schedule. But yeah, I believe you're right about that.
Yeah. So I think we will know coming out of that bye They'll have 4 weeks of tape. They'll get to see how we did against South Carolina, and then we'll have our final offensive line lineup, and that'll be
No,
it for the rest of the season. Who
no.
we got?
Next week is Ole Miss.
Oh Lord Jesus! All right, so
Yeah, our bye week actually doesn't come until after the LSU game.
we split right down the middle. It's 5, and then bye, and then another 5 games.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think the offensive line, it may be better. I think the offensive line might be getting better, and I think our best case scenario is that we get there, we run the ball down their throats.
I need them to
Gus
put up like
comes up with a
150
little
yards
triple.
on rushing some kind of way, man. We got to put up like 150. If we can like really have a dominant rush game, we can win this game going away.
Right. And I
But
think that's our chance. Yeah.
if they limit us to under 100 rush yards, we don't get this W. And we'll talk more about keys to victory on the pregame show. But yeah, I'm gonna pick it 20-17. Anybody else gonna put a number on it?
I said 24-20 South Carolina just because the Muschamp save his job factor. I think there's a chance. Our offensive line has been looking better. Tank's looking like a man out there. I'm gonna flip.
Those are not my concerns.
I'm gonna say 24-20. I'm gonna say 24-20 Auburn.
24-20 Auburn. Okay.
Yeah.
And
I'm flipping.
what you got, C-Dub?
27-20 South Carolina.
Even mad at the pick, man. Like I said, I'm
Can't be mad.
I just don't know what we're gonna see offensively, and I feel like this is gonna be one of those games where Bo is gonna give one away at the wrong time. Like it's never a good time to have a turnover. I just feel like it's gonna be the most inopportune time ever, and he's gonna make me throw something this Saturday.
I mean, ask yourself this: what has this coaching staff done to set Bo up to have a good game this week?
I don't know the answer to that because the game plan from week to week has looked completely different. So
there you go. It's all over the place. So it's just I can't. How can we expect this quarterback to put it all together when it's a complete? It's just I haven't seen the Kentucky game plan since Kentucky.
Right.
So how can you expect him when you in a situation where he has to make throws and have to make plays and you haven't worked on developing him? How can I expect for him to play anything like he's played since it's like he looks like a freshman this year?
Yeah, for sure.
He's playing like his freshman year.
Yeah, man. Like I said, I'm not mad at any of that. I'm going to circle back right here before we get out of here to this comment that I thought was super interesting from Mike Hicks saying, devil's advocate, unlikely. What if we make the playoffs due to all of this COVID nonsense? Like, what if somehow teams lose games that they're not supposed to, rearranging schedules, all of that kind of stuff, and we figure out a way to win games going into the end of this season and sneak into the SEC championship game? That's so far-fetched at this point in the season. Like, I just don't know how we beat a high-powered Ole Miss offense. I don't know how we go and we beat Alabama this year. I don't even know how we beat a mediocre Texas A&M right now. So that, like, I don't see us getting there. But that would
even the SEC championship.
You don't see us what? What are you saying?
Like, I'm saying before the playoffs, you have a conference championship.
Mm-hmm.
You think we're beating the top?
No, I said I don't think that we're getting there. Yeah, I don't think we even have a shot at the SEC championship because, like, COVID would have to like cancel the rest of the season for everybody.
7 of
else.
the top teams would have to all drop dead.
Yeah,
coaches and players and all for us to get to the playoffs.
Like a play just wipes through the building.
Yeah,
everybody in there is over.
Yeah, they just have to all die.
Oh man,
we don't want that to happen.
No, we don't.
We don't want that to happen.
I'm just saying that's what our chances look like.
Yeah, it's not looking good. It's not looking good. We'll see what happens this Saturday. Maybe they wake up something and, we'll come back here singing the praises. I am not banking on that, though. All right, fellas, let's get out of here. We will be back at you all pregame on Saturday. We have the early game this Saturday, so we're going to have the morning pregame at 10, but the game's going to be right after that. So we'll see you guys bright and early on Saturday. We have, of course, our YouTube channel. If you aren't already over there, click like and subscribe on that guy. Twitter and Instagram. Still haven't been doing a good job of posting over there. I promise you we're going to get back on that soon. It's on me just because I've been super busy and I'm not really the one doing all the posting over there. TikTok, we're over there at TW Poor. You guys can holler at us there. Hopefully you'll come back and holler at us this Saturday, pregame, halftime, postgame, all reactions, all live, right here on the War Report. Until then, War Eagle.